raised, and I've had Syrian students come up to me, and of course, the Holocaust in my face, which is always fun.
Hey, they have a president that does that.
I feel that's true. I mean,
Hamas's PhD was the Holocaust denial.
Yeah, and a book that came out after a book that was based on the thesis. But I find that I think it's not overt. Like it's not anti-Israel sentiments, overt anti-Israel sentiments. But I feel like it's in hushed tones, and it's boiling, and it's just waiting to erupt. And so I sort of beat them to the punch with my organization. And next year we're gonna have a huge rally. Daniel Pipes from the Middle East Forum is going to come speak. He's a keynote speaker. We're also going to have some other people coming in. Camera is sponsoring it, and so it's going to be really fun. But I mean, I haven't really. That was the one time when I ran into those Palestinians who were just like crazy. That was the one time that really. I mean, I was sort of prepared for it because I would always get into these debates online, but I would never see Holocaust denial in person. So it was just like, okay, dude. Back up.
And when they do that, if you get to Holocaust denial, you just look at them like, well, if the Holocaust didn't happen and it didn't happen in numbers, why is it illegal in Germany to do what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean,
and that's the Germans. They are the people who actually have a reason to want to deny the Holocaust. Makes them look bad. Yeah. Though I can understand why they find it offensive. They're Germans. They're very meticulous with their numbers. You're going to tell them that they couldn't do something that they did. They're going to be pissed off. So that's just a German mentality, I think.
Exactly.
I'm not sure which one it is, but I don't think that makes that much of a difference. But you find
I always struggle with how to respond to that sort of nonsense. But no, go ahead.
Well, the response is you realize you're being irrational. Yeah. That's the only thing. There is no response. The response is when you get these claims like, as you've heard, it's apartheid. Well, apartheid, and especially coming from having a black woman saying, what are you talking about? Are you gonna apartheid and Jim Crow weren't too far separate there? Are you telling me that these Palestinians are living under Jim Crow laws now? Wait, that doesn't seem right.
Actually, I have run into online. I have run into some pro-Palestinian, like white people, black and pro-Israel.
So is Dr. Martin Luther King.
And I'm like, exactly. It's like, stop it, leave me alone.
I don't think.
And then the other thing is that they're very patronizing. They're like, oh, surely you understand the struggle. Surely you're not pro-Palestinian. Surely you realized, we'll help you come to realize. And then they have these ridiculous arguments, and then I sort of obliterate them. And then they're all like, oh, she's one of them. Let me leave.
Oh, wait. No, the response is, wait, are you going to tell me I don't know what persecution is? Really? Come on. It's not like you're not like me. I could go and put on a baseball hat and no one really knows what religion or what my ethnic background is. You kind of can't hide it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's sort of like right out there,
Well, the thing that I always find is that you do get these claims of anti-Semitic remarks really come in the form. They're disguised nowadays. It's no longer anti-Semitic. They don't like to say it's blatant anti-Semitism. They use the terms colonization. They use genocide. They use apartheid. And they take them and they redefine them, which I think is a big problem that you face in this discussion, is that you've redefined them to mean what you want them to mean. So, pragmatically speaking, when they say those terms, they're talking a different language.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the same thing. It's like, what I'm saying, when I say the term apple, it now means orange.
Yeah.
And okay, so we're just having a different discussion here.
And you can't really come to terms when take even the term anti-Semitism. You can't, to them, when you call them anti-Semitism, they're like, oh no, I'm Arab. I can't be anti-Semitic. And I'm like,
well, then the response to that's actually simple. That's a simple response. The term anti-Semitism was introduced by a German scientist in I want to say the early 1900s to specifically refer to Jew hating. It wasn't aimed towards
Arab.
Arab.
And they're like, no.
That's
They're
they're
like,
trying
no,
to.
I don't believe you.
Okay, so then you have to go and show, like, do your research. But even if you're gonna say that, okay, so so you can't be anti-Semitic because you're Arab. So you're just a Jew hater.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. You don't want to be called anti-Semitic, we'll call you anti-Jew. You like that term better? Anti-Semitic sounds a lot nicer. That's why the Germans did it, because they wanted to have a nice scientific-sounding term to use for Jew hater.
It's insane, dude. I mean, honestly.
It is crazy.
Do you guys have Israel Week in New York? Are you?
I'm no longer on campus. When I was
You're out
there,
of school now, though.
yeah, I've been out of school for a bunch of years, so they do have them on campuses, I'm sure, and they usually try and get it to coincide with the Israel Apartheid Week, so that it goes head in head.
Okay.
So you have both sides at the same time. Actually, usually the way it happens is the Israel Apartheid Week is set up by some liberal college campus group, and then after that's done, the Jewish, the pro-Israel groups go out and they'll have their Israel Awareness Week the same week, just to try to debunk it on the spot. I do remember in college that there were the Arab population would come out in arms against the pro-Israel groups, and occasionally they would get it would get heated. I do remember one instance where the president of one of the really right-wing groups basically said, "I'm not going to dinner with the Muslim Student Association unless the Muslim Student Association is willing to stand up and denounce terrorism," which they refused to do. And that's the real myth of the pro-Palestinian camp, is they believe it is justified there is some action that can justify the murder of innocent civilians. At that point, that's ridiculous. Now they try to turn the argument that they're going to turn is, well, aren't the Israelis doing the same thing? No. Their goal is not to kill innocent civilians. Their goal is to, you do have, when, what's his name? Jabari was killed, when they took him out with that drone strike. There was collateral damage where there were innocent civilians killed. It happens. It's collateral damage. They were not the target. Yeah, they were not the target. There was a military target. Now, and then they're going to say, well, what about during Cast Sled? There were all these kids killed. Well, Richard Goldstone, after he wrote the report, came out, I think it was a year or two after, and basically debunked what he said and said, well, they were using these civilians as human shields, which then, what basically the change is that the accountability for those deaths is no longer on the Israeli army, because they're firing against armed combatants that have now violated the Geneva Conventions of warfare and are using civilians as human shields. So the people who are culpable are the people using the human shields, not the people that are trying to shoot at the people that are using human shields.
It always shocks me how people don't blame Hamas for using these shields. They always blame Israel, and they never look at the fact that Hamas deliberately puts these people in the positions.
They don't believe it happens. It's amazing how they will deny those facts and yet make up other ones to coincide with it. It's really, I don't understand how you can do it when it's well documented. And furthermore, I think even worse than that, they believe during the last incursion in Gaza, this is unreal, the amount of propaganda that Hamas was putting out. They were taking pictures from Syria and putting them up as if they were being, it was unreal. And no one seems to care. oh wait, these people are intentionally trying to deceive us as to what's going on there. Oh look, there's this kid who was killed. Oh wait, that was Syria, and no one seems to really care about this. That that what's being done is basically the equivalent of libel.
Yeah, definitely. I watched this documentary once about Pallywood, about how they literally have these big stews and they have these cameras and they feign these accidents and they feign these Israeli attacks, and the craziest thing is like full on production. You have like a director, you have producer of these things, have kids running around on set, quote unquote, and they send these out to news stations like CNN. Like this particular footage actually showed up on 60 Minutes, and they aired it on 60 Minutes, and they showed the footage of how it was all totally put on. It was completely feigned.
Well,
so, I mean,
they do this a lot. There have been during the Gaza incursion, there was one of these where this guy's like sitting on, and this is someone fact checked the BBC for this. The BBC put it up where they're carrying this guy away who was wounded. And then they pull the camera around like a minute later, and the guy's just walking around fine on camera. Like, wait a second, what's going on here? I've seen countless videos of them having these funerals that they're carrying the body. Someone slips, the person falls off the funeral pyre thing, and he gets up. He puts his hand out to brace himself for the fall, and then he gets up. Like, huh? What's going on here? So, but they're going to accuse the Israelis of making up this stuff when these are known truth benders. I'm not going to go as far as calling them liars, but truth benders.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice of you. I'll call them liars.
I'm trying to see somewhere in the middle. I try to understand the opposing view, and the only thing is, if the Israelis are committing apartheid, even if they are, you can accept all of their premises. Fine, your premise. I think they're wrong, but let's accept them. Are you saying that your premises justify the targeted murdering of children? For example, there was a family murdered. I want to say it was sometime in the past year. The Vogel family in a town. Now, I happen to have served there in the village of Itamar there where they were killed. I know it's a small, tight-knit community. These people, they're just farmers. They really don't do anything. They don't bother anyone. Now, explain to me what justification there is someone climbing a fence, hiding from the army, going in and murdering, slitting the throats of a man, his wife, his 1, 3, and 5-year-old children. That's beyond me. I cannot find. First of all, I don't understand. I don't understand mentally what someone's thinking when they can take a knife to an infant and slit an infant and stab an infant. I just don't get it. I don't understand how you could justify it.
When you ask this question, how do these people respond?
Bait and switch.
You ask this question.
When you get it, when you ask the question, it's always a bait and switch is the response. Well, what do you say? When's it justified to the Israelis? And that's where the bait and switch starts. And I don't know if there's a way to even stop them from the only way to stop them is, wait a second, can you answer my question? I'm going to agree with you. I don't think it's ever justified to murder an innocent child. I don't care if the Israelis are doing it. I don't care if the Arabs are doing it. But you're making a claim. You're trying to justify these actions. Now, assuming that this is true, that we have countless documented cases where Palestinians have tried to massacre Jews, stab them, shoot them, blow them up, what is the proper response of the Israeli government, who has an obligation towards its citizenry to protect it? You have to give that to them. What are they supposed to do? We've armed their police. Their police can't control this. Well, what else are we supposed to do? And, I wish there was someone from the opposition on here who could really answer that question for me, because I don't know what the answer is. If you're telling me what the Israelis are doing is wrong, what is the proper action that they are supposed to take to protect its citizenry? And there doesn't seem
any takers.
Anyone out there? I would really love a response to this, because I don't know what the solution is. If what the Israelis are doing is wrong, then someone please explain to me what they ought to be doing. Should they open the borders and allow their citizens to continue to be massacred? Should they, when Hamas starts shooting thousands upon thousands of rockets at southern Israel, are they just supposed to stand by and allow that to go? You know, I had a gentleman that I had a Vonvo with last week. He told me that when Jabari was killed, he was carrying a peace treaty. And I wouldn't be surprised if you've heard this, a ceasefire with him when he was killed. Well, my question is this. Why was he carrying this? To whom? What were the conditions? Because, I don't know, these guys lived underground. They knew how to use the internet. They knew how to send secure emails. It's not that hard to send something like this via secure email, which would be a hell of a lot safer than these guys showing their faces. It just doesn't make any sense. And you want to know what?
Yeah.
It's funny. No one has been able to produce this document either. You want to know what? I'm fine. I will even accept that. Yes, okay, fine. There was a thing. Show it to me. Show me in any which way this is true, because it's a fabricated story, and the Palestinian PR is awesome. They come out with these things all the time. They don't have any proof, and there's no way of getting any proof for these things. They don't have any way of proving any of these things. It's just the crazy part. Like, wait a second, how do you prove that these people had this? You're not producing a document.
This is actually the first time I've heard that, actually.
I heard this once on the media, and some of the Palestinian media said this, and then I heard this in a Vonvo I had last week, and I'm just like, this is just, I don't get it. I'm like, it's beyond me. It's how this makes any sense. You want to know what? If it was true, and he was carrying a ceasefire, and the Israelis killed him while doing this, fine, I'll agree with you that that's a heinous act, and that shouldn't have been done. You gonna give me any proof that this happened? Or was there a unicorn that was also delivering this message that was in his car? Or, sorry, was E.T. sitting in the passenger seat along with Jabari? Because I can make that claim also. They killed E.T.
Or Santa Claus.
On an equal playing field right here. It's something that can't be proven. I know it sounds like a ridiculous red herring argument, but you're making if they're gonna make comments that, and this is what the opposing side likes to do. The Vonvo last night, Miko there actually brought up something interesting. There's this whole Palestinian heritage, and there are these authors, and then the other guy said, "Well, can you name one for me?" He's like, "I have a whole shelf of the books." And he didn't pull out a name, though, or any of the books. So they have this rich culture and heritage and literature, but he can't name one author off the top of his head. Like, okay, you want to know what? I'm an American. We got a rich American culture, a literary culture. Mark Twain, for example. There's one off the top of my head. You want to know what? The Israeli literature. You have Amos Oz. There you go. There's one off the top of my head. Like, you can pick these things out. The fact of the matter is, these people can't pick out even a simple thing like a name. Or I have the same individual I had the Vonvo with last week. He said Yitzhak Rabin committed atrocities. I said, name one. And he couldn't name an instance. I find it, it's amazing. Like, you find these things all the time. Like, give me an example. Hard example. It's not that difficult to come up with proof. What?
When they say Israel is committing ethnic genocide. And
Ethnic, yeah.
Like,
What does that mean?
How?
Wait, what does that even mean?
When the Palestinian population
I've heard this
like,
ethnic cleansing. I've heard ethnic cleansing. I've heard genocide used. And I get so, as a Jew, I take personal offense. Genocide is the targeted annihilation of a specific group that entails murder. If you're going to say genocide is exiling a people and renaming their land and all this other nonsense, you are redefining a term. What are you talking about? Because what they're doing isn't genocide. They're not killing people. Like, are you, when they say ethnic cleansing, wait, are you talking like, the last time I heard ethnic cleansing used, that it was a legitimate thing, was in the mid-90s in Serbia. That was genocide. That was ethnic cleansing. They were lining people up by the thousands and murdering them. At point, like, that's genocide. Now, and that's ethnic cleansing. Because, now, how is this going on by the Israelis? Are they taking their Israeli Arab population out and lining them up and shooting them also? Are they throwing them out of their houses? Are they discriminating against those people also? Because if you're doing it, and this is the bad thing, that this is what they want, the pro-Palestinians want to talk about, it has only to do, they want to separate what's going on to the Palestinians that live in the West Bank from the Palestinians that live in the state of Israel. Now, I use the term Palestinian because that's what they use, so fine. I'll use their term. Now, if you're going to tell me that the same standard applies to both of these groups, it's ludicrous. The only thing that what's called Miko last night, when I was listening to this, the only law he brought up that had any differentiation between Muslims and Jews was a marriage law. But he also left out the other part where there are restrictions for Jews as well. It's a two-sided thing. It's not just marriage is an institution that's governed by the saints. Yeah, they screw both sides. It's not just that an Arab from the West Bank can't marry one in Jew. Well, a marriage between a convert to Judaism and a Jew in the state of Israel isn't recognized unless it was an Orthodox conversion. Now, whether I agree with that or not is different. It is the right of the Israeli government, just as it's the right of the New York State or Louisiana state government to regulate marriage. That is, I don't know, does Louisiana is that one of the states that bars gay marriage? Doesn't recognize it?
Yes.
It doesn't. Okay, so
we don't recognize
that.
it.
So well, then you have a great argument there. If you're going to say that's a human rights violation, then the state of Louisiana is also committing a human rights violation by not recognizing marriage of two homosexuals. That's a human rights violation. Let's bring them to the human rights courts there. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
There's certain claims. And I'll tell you this.
I think what I've recognized...
Go ahead.
What I've realized at the university is that more than trying to change the minds of people in the pro-Palestinian camp, I'm trying to expose people and their belief system and how it works, especially to, people who are, like, if I'm getting into a heated discussion, I'm trying to expose, I'm not necessarily trying to convince them, because I've tried to convince them and I've run into dead ends, unfortunately. So I find that trying to expose them and try to win people who don't know about the issues over to your side is much more easier to do than trying to win people in their camp over.
Well, what I found is this. There are a lot of people that are just this. I've learned one thing. When you're talking about to the extreme left, there is no talking to them. There just isn't. It's the liberalism in America. Once you get someone that's gone over the edge, there's no talking to them. They take these positions. They really don't care what the conclusion is. But that's one thing. But there are a lot of people, especially in the university, and when they come in, they're just uninformed. They don't understand the situation, but they're going to take a position on it. They'll say, oh, they've heard these buzzwords like apartheid, colonizers, genocide, ethnic cleansing. They hear these terms. They're great buzzwords and they're good talking points. They don't know any meat that's behind them. Say, wait, here's what apartheid means. How does this apply when you have, if there is the same condition, if there are equal rights for Palestinian Israeli Palestinians that live within the Green Line, they have equal rights as the Jews and the Christians there, but if they have equal rights, then it's not apartheid. Apartheid is the segregation of citizens. That's what that's genocide, ethnic cleansing. Show me the mass graves. That's ethnic cleansing. What's called in the other camp, I understand.
And then when you get into that, the people you're talking to start rambling.
When they start rambling, you really just have to stop them. You have to start asking pointed yes or no questions. That's the only way to get through this. I was having a discussion. It gets bogs down to nonsense. The Israelis have no right to land. Wait a second. The only way you have a right to land is through purchase or treaty. Fine. Well, who owned the land before? Who had control of it before the Israelis? The Brits. And how did they gain legal control over it? Well, through a treaty with the Ottoman Empire. So there are 3 treaties in a row that give the Israeli government right to govern. And you get to that, but they don't want to make that step. Like, well, they had the right to rule, they didn't have ownership, and then it bogs down to nonsense. They try to dodge the question. Which is why a lot of times when you start going out, especially students, you have to ask them yes or no questions. Like, wait, do they have control or don't they? This is a simple yes or no. People don't like to answer that. They don't like to answer the direct questions because they understand that it isn't. Also, the other one I find interesting is they start calling the IDF terrorists. Well, what's a terrorist then? Is someone protecting his country a terrorist? Are American soldiers in Afghanistan terrorists? If you get an answer, it's yes to that. The discussion's obviously over at that point. The person has a position that you can't talk to because they think that any soldier is a terrorist, or if anyone considering. At that point, you got to walk away because there's no talking. If someone's going to claim that a soldier protecting his country is a terrorist, then there's nothing more to talk about. Yeah, obviously, you have these radical positions that most people don't agree with, so I don't understand what we're talking about anymore. But if they're going to say that it's anyone who kills people and brings terror, like the Israeli army brings terror into the eyes of the Palestinians, this is an argument, so they're terrorists. Well, did the LAPD in the early 90s, were they terrorists? Because they did the same thing to the black population there. It bogs down to lunacy half the time because they can't explain how this is either a terrorism or they can't explain what terrorism is. They say cause is terrorism. The point is, when it comes to terrorism, the question is the motivation. What's the motivation? Is the motivation to protect citizens? Well, then it's not. It's citizens. Then it's not terrorism. Is the goal to strike fear in your opponent, which happens to be the case with the Palestinians? Then it's terrorism. That's where the line is. What is the goal? And unfortunately, that's just overlooked most of the time. Wish there was someone else. I see people that look like they're on the other camp in the viewers list. I wish that someone would jump in here, because I would love to get some responses by anyone that can give me a rational response to any of these, because I'm mind-boggled. It really goes well above my head when they start calling like people terrorists, and I love when they say that they called Menachem Begin the big terrorist there. I thought about this interestingly, and he was the big one who, and he was right. He was right. Most people are right in making this comment that he didn't like the Arabs. He thought they had no right to live in the state of Israel. It's true. And yet, when he was prime minister of Israel, there were no checkpoints. There was no security wall being conceived of. None of this nonsense. None of this stuff that they're complaining with under the most extravagant, by a guy that was called a terrorist, labeled a terrorist by the British government, never instituted these policies. And it was before the first Intifada. There was free reign. It's amazing. So wait, how does this happen? What's interesting is even the left.
You essentially have
Even the Israeli left has basically abandoned the position that a lot of these positions that they once held. For example, if you know who Shimon Peres is, the president of Israel right now. He was also one of the, I guess,
yes.
framers of Oslo. Now, when the disengagement from Gaza occurred, he was all for it. Yes, we should do that. This will bring about peace. They'll have their own country. He's said recently that was a mistake. And this is a man who wants peace. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. This man has strived for peace his whole life. And now he's saying this was a mistake. And no one seems to be able to address the concern either. What's called what are the big...
I think that also, I don't know if you've noticed this.
Go ahead.
The media, I find that Israel has a media problem.
Oh, yes, they're terrible at PR.
And, yeah.
Well, there's a reason for this.
I don't know. It's sort of my dream career goal to help them with that.
The problem is this: the liberal media happens to be just that, liberals. The liberal position happens to be this position of changing the term of the meaning of terms such as colonization, apartheid, and genocide. It happens to be anti-Israel, against them. They take if you look at the liberals in colleges, because this is where it all starts. The people who teach liberalism tend to be anti-Israel, and that's what sinks over. They don't want to see a conservative person get up there. Look, if you have someone that gets up like, I'm for gay rights, I'm for what's it called again, equal opportunity for everyone, I'm pro-abortion and pro-Israel. You find that combination outside the Jewish community is really small, because that last one just doesn't fit in with the rest. For some reason, I don't understand it. You'd think that the liberal society would say, well, wait a second, let's look at the contributions that the Israelis have given to the world. They are a democracy in a region of theocracies. Okay, they have these scientific achievements. Wait a second. It's over on the other side of the room. You have a cell phone, right? Who developed that technology? Who pioneered this? Yeah, mine's across on the other side of the room also. But who developed all these technology? Who's the pioneers of most of the technology that you use today? These are bad people, and you think their goal, you're telling me that the Israeli population wouldn't prefer to oppress, spend millions upon millions of dollars, probably tens of millions of dollars, to oppress another people rather than spending it on more technological advancement? This makes sense to anyone? This is a country that's all for technological growth. They want to spend their funds on defense before increasing knowledge and technology and making the world a better place. It just doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, we don't have anyone else on the other side here. I see some people that I wish would just jump in.
I know you bring these up questions.
Like I see someone's got an Arabic name.
I know that, I don't know how you pronounce his name.
Who?
Yeah, and Jihad H came on the last time. Well, not the last, but Jihad H. He came on the last time watching Vonvo, so I don't know if he wants to come on now. Sorry for calling you out.
Yeah, John, you've been called out. Jump in. Trying to look down. I'm sure there are people who will disagree with the position that we're taking. I'm not saying my position's perfect. I've been trying to find a rational position as to what the Israelis are doing that qualifies as apartheid. I haven't had anyone basically been able to give me a rational answer. I've heard people say, "Oh, it's worse than apartheid." Well, it's not, because it's not segregating a specific group. You're targeting a population that has declared war on you, and you put them under martial law. Okay, I'm willing to accept that. They've declared it's a state of war. The best is when they start getting into international law. I don't understand what that is, but the best is when they start quoting Resolution 242. What they tend to leave out of Resolution 242 is that there was a specific word in Article 1, in Section 1.1, whatever it is. It's that Israel needs to return the territory. Now, the original draft said all the territory that they gained in the war, and that was vetoed by the United States. So the final resolution didn't say all the territory. Why? Because they were not expecting the Israelis to give back everything.
Yeah.
And you want to overlook history.
And they already gave back the Sinai, so.
They gave back the Sinai for peace.
Among other things.
Well, there was something I saw today that the UN apparently wants Israel to turn the Golan Heights back over to Syria. Now, I don't understand.
I saw that.
I don't understand the logic behind that. This is a country that has a civil war going on, and now you want the Israelis to yield territory, which will allow the conflict to spill over to a larger region. I'm missing something here. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah. But look, it's the UN. If you look at the
UN is such a joke now.
What? What'd you say?
The UN is such a, it's ridiculous how crazy the UN is.
I'm curious what the difference in these resolutions would be if it was being created by the Arab League versus the United Nations. The only thing in the United Nations that has any authority is that Security Council.
That's a good point.
Honestly, the only thing that makes any sense that goes on, anything that happens, it's only in the Security Council. And the only thing the Security Council is there for is to prevent a global war. That's all it's there for. The thing that goes any than that is ridiculous. Because look, I believe there are non-proliferation treaties signed by every member. Well, no, that's not true because I know Israel hasn't signed them. But by most of the world, they have these non-proliferation treaties. Yet Russia is supplying Iran with material so that they can proliferate nuclear weapons. I don't understand how that's not a violation of the treaties.